This is Renee Romeo. Today you're joining me to make GingerDEAD men for Halloween. I said GingerDEAD. So these are adorable little gingerbread men, but they have little skeletons that are stamped and imprinted on each and every cookie, making the decorating process so easy that even a child could do this and have it look perfect every single time. So let me go ahead and show you exactly what you need to get started. So what you're going to need is a cookie cutter from a company called Fred, and it's called GingerDEAD Men. And what you receive is a cookie cutter, which is plain on one side, and then it has a relief of a skeleton on the other. And this is what you'll use to go ahead and imprint your cookie after you go ahead and cut it. But really, primarily, you need a great recipe for gingerbread. Now, gingerbread can be complicated, as in a lot of recipes that I've tried in the past, but honestly, I'm giving Betty Crocker credit for mine. This is the one that I use time and time again. It turns out perfect every single time. You can make it in one giant bowl. You don't need a mixer, you just need a spoon. And it's super simple, and it's really, really easy to work with too. So you need a nice flat surface to roll your cookies nice and flat. And here I have a cutting board because I have tile on my surface. And I have it lined with a piece of plastic wrap and then just a little bit of flour just sprinkled over the top of it so that the cookie dough doesn't stick to the plastic wrap. From there, I have a marble rolling pin. Now, the marble rolling pin is great because it's nice and straight, and this is exactly what you need in order to get a nice smooth surface over the top of your cookie. You want your cookie to be nice and even all the way through the thickness. So you're going to need one of these. And you're going to need a batch of gingerbread. So the batch of gingerbread that I made today, I have it cooling for about 2.5 hours, and you'll see it's nice and fluffy. So I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit of this right in the center of my plastic wrap. So let's go ahead and roll this out. So I have the dough kind of flattened out with my hand. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of flour over the top and rub it in slightly. Then I'll grab another piece of plastic wrap and put it directly over the top of that. Grab the marble rolling pin and go ahead and start pressing this in place. Now we're looking for 1/4 inch thick. It needs to be nice and even all the way across the surface of the dough. And so the way that you do that is to try to work from the center and work your way out to the edges, because that really makes a nice even roll all the way through the dough. So this is feeling really good. So you just run your hand over the top of it, make sure that everything feels like it's nice and even, and if not, you can make one final pass over the top. Take your plastic wrap and pull it away. So here's my cookie cutter, and I'm just going to go ahead and start on one end, press this in place, and I should be able to get 3 to 4 characters out of this dough. Okay, so now peel away all of the edges. Now this plastic wrap really makes it easy for you to get the gingerbread man off of the bottom layer here. So it just kind of pulls away, and you're just going to put it straight on your cookie sheet, just like that. Now, a lot of recipes will say to go ahead and actually put flour on your cutter to make this process go a little easier. But what I'm doing here, I've got some brown rice flour. I think this is really great because it's a little granular and it's very easy to work with. You're not going to put too much of this on here like you can with flour. And this will definitely bake away, so you're not going to see it, but you can get a nice even surface on here so that your cookie cutter doesn't stick to your dough. So line up all of your edges as best you can. If you need to move some of the little hands and stuff, go ahead and do that, because it's going to make a better impression the more cookie that you cover. So you're going to give it firm pressure because you want this to make a nice indentation. It's going to make your decorating much easier in the end. And then you're just going to go ahead and peel it back. And look at that great impression. It's perfect. That's where all of your frosting is going to lay and make everything nice and crisp. Now, if you're rolling these and you're wondering whether or not to make them a little bit thinner than the way that I'm doing it, and I'm going to tell you 1/4 inch is really what you need. And the reason why This is not a traditional gingerbread cookie, little thin gingerbread men. This is a nice thick cookie, and the reason why it needs to be 1/4 of an inch is because you need to put a lot of pressure on this cookie cutter in order to make the impression so that your frosting is easier to do after everything is baked. So you need a nice, crisp, clear impression on the top of that cookie, so you do need 1/4 of an inch thick. These have been baking for 14 minutes, and that's just perfect. And you'll see they've spread, they've become a little bit puffy, but the impressions are just perfect. And then this tray is ready to go in, and you'll see the difference there between the two. They lighten a little bit and they get a little bit puffy. So 14 minutes is all it takes. And as you can see, I baked these on top of parchment paper, and it makes the cookies really easy to release. They're not stuck at all. And these are allowed to cool on the cookie sheet itself before I transfer it to a cooling tray. So they've been sitting here for about 15 minutes. The cookies are completely cool, and I've gone ahead and decorated 2 cookies already, just so you can see where I'm going with this. So I have a pastry bag outfitted with royal icing and a number 2 tip. I've used clear vanilla in that royal icing so that I can get a beautiful bright white color out of it, which is what a bone looks like. So you may be looking here at this number 2 tip. It's got a very tiny tip on it, and you may be thinking it's a little bit too small. But here's my number 5 tip, which actually matches the contours of the bones pretty well. But you know what? If you use this, you're not going to have the kind of control that you can get with the number 2 tip, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So let's go over here to this little bone. Now, the great thing about this is that I can kind of maneuver my tip, hold it in a certain spot for a little bit until it's full, and then move it down again. And so this is going to give me so much more control than if I'm trying to fill it all at once with a larger tip. And you'll see, even with the toes, it's very easy. It just fills in the divots really well. And so it's kind of like coloring a picture. Just stay within the lines. Go around that little dot. And I'm kind of stopping a little bit at the ends and coming back. So you'll see it gives you so much control with the smaller tip. It lets you flood the areas a little bit more than actually decorating them and applying it to the top. So this is why it was so important for you to get a good press of that cookie cutter when you were cutting it, because the frosting just kind of follows these contours automatically. If you didn't do that and these were more shallow, you'd have a much harder time, and you'd actually be drawing the pattern on top of the cookie instead of filling in all of these divots and having everything turn out nice and neat. So be extra careful when you're pressing, and make sure you're pressing enough just to give this frosting a place to go. And I'm just going to show you how to fix problems that you might come across. So if you have little areas that aren't quite filled in, you can go ahead and push it around with a bamboo skewer. It works really well for all these little areas. And then if you have a little too much icing around the nose, you can go ahead and scrape it off really easily with this skewer and not look like you've made a mess. And if you have areas, especially here, where some of the frosting went over the little teeth, you can go ahead, put your bamboo skewer in, and remove some of that icing. Perfect. Well, there you go. 21 of the cutest skeletons you've ever seen. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. This is Renee Romeo, and I'll bring you another great recipe and decorating project in the future.